It started with a smile and a hug. But when I reached for my daughter, Amanda cut across the room with a voice like a cold slap. "She's still being punished. Go to your room." My daughter, 12 years old, smart as a whip, polite to a fault, froze. Her eyes flicked to mine. Then she turned and walked upstairs. That's when I knew something was very wrong. Amanda and my ex-husband, John, motioned for me to sit. Their expressions were stiff, rehearsed. They acted like they were calling a meeting at the office, not confronting the mother of John's child. They didn't waste time. They told me flat out they had made a decision, that Sadie, my Sadie, was going to be pulled out of her private school and enrolled in public school with Amanda's 2 daughters. Because, they said, it wasn't fair. Amanda's girls go to public school, so should Sadie, for the sake of equality, harmony, fairness. And then they told me I should continue Sadie's punishment at my house, because when she heard their plan, she'd blown up, yelled at them, called them out, told them they weren't her real family, and said what they'd done was stealing. That was the moment I lost every ounce of composure. I looked Amanda in the eye, then John, and I told them to fikat off. Because let me be very clear, you do not get to punish my daughter for speaking the truth. You do not get to decide what school my daughter goes to when you see her twice a month and contribute nothing to her tuition. And you sure as hell do not get to steal her clothes, gaslight her, and call it parenting. This is the story of how I found out my ex-husband and his new wife were trying to drag my daughter down to make themselves feel better, and how I fought back. 5 years ago, I divorced John. We weren't a bad match at first. We had our daughter Sadie when I was 24. I worked my way up the corporate ladder. Law school, internships, late nights at the office. He had a 9 to 5. Solid job. Reliable income. We split when it became clear we were no longer a team. Since then, I've built a life around Sadie. She's my world. It's just the 2 of us. And I've made sure she never felt like she had to settle. She goes to a great private school. She has a college fund. Her clothes are high quality, built to last. Not flashy, not designer, just intentional, durable, thoughtfully chosen. And somehow, I still manage to raise a child who says, please, who volunteers at shelters, who gets straight A's, and who folds her laundry without being asked. So when she came back from her dad's house a few months ago wearing clothes that were too small, threadbare, and clearly not hers, I asked. She shrugged, said Amanda borrows her things for her daughters. They're 8 and 10. Amanda takes Sadie's nice outfits and gives her cheaper ones from Target. Sadie, ever the peacemaker, told me it didn't bother her. Said she didn't want to be selfish. I should have known then. I should have raised hell, but I didn't. I thought, maybe she's just trying to bond with them. Maybe she's being generous. So I let it slide. Big mistake. Because when Amanda offered to pick Sadie up from school one Friday, I was in a meeting and couldn't do it. I didn't think much of it, just a one-time favor. But that Sunday, when I came to pick her up and saw the way Amanda controlled the room, how she told my daughter to go to her room like she was a dog under command, how John just sat there and watched. Something inside me snapped. They said Sadie acted out when she heard their plan. She raised her voice, called Amanda's kids thieves. Said none of them were her real family. They said she needed consequences. I said what she needs is protection. Amanda has no job. That's not an insult. It's a choice. She's not disabled. She's not struggling. She just doesn't want to work. Meanwhile, John works full-time to support Amanda and her kids. And somehow, they looked at me. Someone who's built her career from scratch, who works long hours to give my child a better life, and said I should downgrade Sadie's future so their daughters wouldn't feel less than. I told them no. I told them Sadie would stay in her school, that Amanda could get a job anytime she wanted. She has the degree, the qualifications. The job market is wide open. Their money problems are not my problem. Their jealousy is not my burden. And their insecurity is not my daughter's cross to bear. I told them if Sadie's belongings were taken again, if they so much as touched her education, I'd take them to court. That was the last civil words spoken between us. They blew up my phone, called me selfish, elitist. One friend I confided in even told me I was rubbing my success in their faces. I started to question myself. Was I being arrogant? Was I pushing too hard? But then I looked at Sadie, this little girl who gave away her clothes without complaint, who thought that by giving more, she could make her father's new family love her, who cried quietly in the car ride home, not because she lost clothes or comfort, but because she realized they never saw her as family at all. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about clothes, this was about erasure. They were slowly chipping away at her identity, stealing what made her feel like herself and trying to mold her into someone more manageable, more equal, more theirs. But she's not theirs, she's mine, and I will protect her with every last breath. So I called my lawyer. We moved fast. I filed for temporary guardianship, citing emotional abuse, theft, and attempts at parental alienation. We notified the school. John and Amanda were removed from the pickup list. Only I and my mother could take Sadie out of school. I demanded her belongings be returned in the same condition they were taken. Every message from them now goes through email and is CC'd to my attorney. Sadie started therapy. She's learning that her boundaries matter, that she doesn't have to accept mistreatment just to keep the peace. And then came the hearing. John showed up expecting 50-50 custody. He walked out with supervised visitation once a week. No contact with Amanda or her daughters. I now have full educational decision-making rights. Amanda tried to claim I was alienating John, trying to sever the father-daughter bond. But the therapist testified. The emails spoke for themselves, and the judge saw through it all. Amanda was furious. She tried to contact me, tried to contact Sadie. We blocked her, and I told her, any more harassment, and I'll escalate to the authorities. Sadie is safe now, and for the first time in a long time, she knows what it feels like to be protected. She's still healing. There are days she asks if she did something wrong, if she was too mean when she yelled at Amanda, if she could have handled things better. I tell her, you did the bravest thing a kid can do. You stood up for yourself when the adults failed you. She's learning to trust again, to speak up, to be loved not for how well she bends, but for how brightly she shines. So, am I the asshole for telling my ex that his lack of money is not my problem? Or was I just a mother who finally said, enough? You decide. Sometimes the villains in our lives don't wear capes. They wear smiles. They say they're doing what's best for the kids. They wrap their insecurities in the language of fairness. But behind it all is a need to control. Control what your child wears, how they think, what they deserve. This story isn't just about one mother fighting for her daughter's wardrobe or school. It's about boundaries, about what happens when people confuse access with entitlement, when jealousy turns into punishment, when a child becomes a pawn in an adult's ego war. To the parents listening, this is your reminder. You do not have to apologize for building a better life for your child. You do not owe your success to those who resent it, and you do not need to shrink your child's future to make someone else feel comfortable. To the kids listening, you are allowed to have nice things. You are allowed to stand up for yourself, and you are allowed to say no when something doesn't feel right. And to everyone else, I want to ask you, have you ever been punished for having more? Or told to give up something you earned just to make someone else feel better? Tell us in the comments. And remember, every story we share here is about more than who's right or wrong. It's about who we choose to become when the world tells us to stay silent. Thanks for listening to AITA Stories. We'll see you next time.